once again before you. As you know very well that we have been dealing with the chapter 4 in business studies for class 12 CBSE syllabus, that is planning, and in today's session we are going to cover the limitations of planning, right? So without wasting much time, let's start it. So there are the points of limitations of planning. Before I proceed further, let me tell you something about planning. See what happens. We say that planning is very much important. We have learned the importance of planning. We know very well that planning is having many features, right? So why the planning has limitations? See, when we try to think a solution to a problem, then we cannot say that this solution is 100% correct, because all the planning is the just estimation, nothing else, right? Planning is all about having the estimation for future course of action. What will be the move, okay, on the basis of the analysis, right? But all the time the analysis is accurate, 100% accurate, it cannot be said, right? It cannot be all the time correct. May be possible due to some faults. Faults may be natural, which were generated from the environment, or man-made faults were there. Just because of that, planning could not be successful. Okay, planning got failed. Sometimes it happens that the planning fails. Okay, so many organizations experience this, right? And then they just do the analysis once again, right? So if we are studying the limitations of planning, then it doesn't mean that planning is not important anymore. Planning is still having that much relevance, as I told you in the beginning. But keeping the limitations in mind, if we do the planning, then we can have better planning, right? Okay, because everything has some merits and demerits. Okay, so this is what the negative aspect of the planning. Okay, so now we are going to study about all these points. Fine. So let's start. The very first point is planning leads to rigidity. Planning may not work in a dynamic environment. Planning reduces creativity. Planning involves huge cost. Planning is a time-consuming process. And last, planning does not guarantee success. Right? I have left this code place blank. Why? Because you know what is going to come, the code is going to come, so that you can remember all these points together. Right? Okay, so I just write down the code. So here is the code. Running dog can hit the goats. Yes, unique it is, right? Okay, you'll have to imagine a kind of situation that there is a group of goats which is there on the road, and a dog is running very rapidly. Okay, so maybe possible that the dog can hit the goats. Okay, unusual situation, unique situation, just imagine that, so that you may remember the points of limitations of planning pretty well for a longer period, right? So let's start. So this R stands for rigidity, D stands for dynamic, C stands for creativity, H stands for huge, T stands for time, and this G stands for guarantee. These are the keywords. If you remember these keywords, you can frame the other language on your own, and you can write down all the limitations wherever you need to mention. Most of the time in case studies, you need to remember all these points, or maybe possible that a direct question comes so that you can mention. So you can easily remember all the points with the help of this code. Now let's move further. Okay, so let's understand these points one by one. So planning leads to rigidity. So very first we need to understand the meaning of this term rigidity. Rigidity, the term has come from rigid. Rigid is something which is not able to be changed, right? When you cannot change something, you can call it rigid. Sometimes in your conversation you can mention that the person is being rigid, okay, for this condition, right? Okay, rigid means the person is not going to accept any change in that. Okay, so here we are talking about the plans. So when an organization makes plan, these plans are made with specific goals for specific time period, right? Okay, so what happens, they have to implement those plans within that time period. Okay, now, but if in that time period some circumstances of the environment change, then the problem happens, right? Because the plans are what? Specific one. Plans are supposed to be followed as these have been prepared. So if any change is happening in the environment, or if any circumstances has a change, then rigidness of the plan can go against the interest of the organization. Okay, because the predetermined plans may not work in future course of action, because these are there on the basis of the estimation. Okay, and sometimes the situations change. Okay, so when there is a change in situation, so what is the solution for that? Solution is that manager should be given some flexibility, so that if there is a change in the situation, they can also make change in the plan, right? But if it is not done, then what happens? Planning has to suffer with a problem, that is rigidity. Okay, and just because of this rigidity, the organization has to suffer a loss. Okay, I just give you one example so that you can understand it better. Okay, say for example, there is one organization and this year they have planned that in a particular region they are going to provide 5% discount to their customers, right? So they have made a policy, discount policy, that up to 5% discount they are going to offer to their customers. Okay, now what happens? They announced it, they are running the advertisement with that, and the customers are coming to those as well. No problem, everything is going well. Then all of a sudden what happened? Their competitor also reduced the price of their products. Okay, now the consumer is demanding more discount to you. Okay, and you know very well that if you increase only 1%, means if you make this discount 6%, then there is no problem, you can still earn better than your competitors. But the plans are a specific one, okay, and these are supposed to be followed strictly. Okay, the marketing executive reported that there is a need to increase the discount just because of the competitors, but no change could not take place, and just because of that, what happened? At the end of the year, the organization has to suffer a loss, right? The turnover they could have got, they did not get. The target was not achieved just because of the rigidity of the plan, right? Okay, if there was some flexibility in the planning, okay, then it could have been avoided. Understood? Now let's move on to another point of limitation. So the next point is planning may not work in a dynamic environment, right? As we have already learned the business environment chapter recently, and there we learned the 5 dimensions of the business environment. What were those? Economic factors, social factors, legal factors, political factors, and technological factors, right? So all these dimensions are ever changing, means they keep on changing. Okay, anytime there is a change in any dimension related to anything. Say for example, if we talk about the economic environment, then there is a change in the import and export rules, okay, or there is a change in the rates of interest, or the income of the people, right? If we talk about the social factors, then there is a change in the taste of the people or the lifestyle of the people, okay. And if you talk about the technological environment, then there is a continuous updation of the technology, okay, and innovative ideas are there, right? And if we talk about the legal and political changes, then political, when the government changes, the political changes are already there, okay, and government keeps on making the amendments in the legal laws, right? So the changes keep on going on, okay. So what happens? Sometimes, say for example, the organization has already planned something, right? Okay, the keeping the present status of the mind, But in future, what happens before the time period of this particular plan gets expired, the situation in the environment change. Means there is a change in any of the dimension of the environment, because as it is having a feature that is dynamic. Okay, then what happens, the organization has to suffer. Okay, their planning may not work there. In actual, we say that sometimes it gets failed, because every time it is difficult to foresee and analyze the reaction of a particular change in the environment. Okay, and moreover, they cannot estimate the all changes in the beginning, right? Sometimes the changes come unexpectedly, all of a sudden. Even then, they try to cope with the situation. If they can manage, survive, that is pretty fine. Otherwise, it happens in that situation, the planning does not work, it gets failed, right? I just give one example so that you can understand in a better way. Suppose that the government all of a sudden puts a ban on import from China. Then all the organizations which were dealing in the import business from China, their business is going to be affected. Their planning related to import is going to be failed. Okay, then they'll have to plan once again, and very less time they have. Okay, they'll have to think the another alternative to supply their production. Otherwise, they are going to suffer a loss, right? So this happens. This is the one example I gave related to the change in the legal environment. Okay, but there can be many other examples related to the other 4 dimensions of the business environment. Okay, so in short, we can say that planning may not work in a dynamic environment, because the environment keeps on changing. So every time we cannot say that all the time the estimations are correct and all the situations are anticipated in the beginning and all the time your planning is successful. Okay, many a time the situation may come that your planning gets failed. Understood? Now let's move on to another point of limitation. So the another point is planning reduces creativity. Okay, in the last lecture we learnt, while I was discussing with you the importance of planning, then we learnt a point there that planning promotes innovative ideas, and this point is exactly opposite of that. But it is not opposite, it seems opposite. How? See, there the planning was promoting innovative ideas at the top level, right? The people who are sitting and planning. And now what it is talking about, I just explained. See, what happens, the planning is done at the top level. Okay, top level managers, as many are there, they sit, they do analysis, they forecast, okay, and then they just formulate the plans, right? And those plans are implemented by all in the organization. The middle level managers as well as the supervisory level managers, they are responsible for the execution of the plans, right? See, when these people means middle level and supervisory level managers, when they execute the plans, then what happens, while execution they experience the practical problems, right? Okay, and when they experience the practical problem, then the practical solutions also strike to their minds. Okay, they get the better ideas and the innovative ideas in their mind to do the same function, but they cannot exercise that. Why? Because they are not allowed to make any change in the plan. Okay, they are supposed to stick to that plan. Okay, and they are not supposed to use their innovative thinking and creativity. Fine. So when, in spite of noticing and observing this, that there can be another better way to complete the same task, the person is unable to do that, then what happens, by and by the person stops trying for that. Okay, and as a result the creativity is reduced, right? So planning reduces the creativity of the middle level managers as well as the supervisory level of managers, right? Not the top level managers. Understood? Okay, because the middle level managers and supervisory level of managers, they are rarely consulted while drafting the plans. When the top level managers are drafting the plans, they do not have discussion with these managers, right? Okay, that is why it happens. They are just asked that they need to get these plans implemented anyhow. Okay, they are not allowed to show their own skills, because see, a creative idea is not limited to the big positions. It can strike to anybody's mind, right? And that is my personal view, that it should be valued. But in some organizations, in most of the organization, I would say it does not happen. There is no value of such ideas, because the people who are holding the top prior position, they think themselves, they have a kind of aura that they are the most intelligent one, they are the expert one, so they only can take the right decision, they only can think creatively and innovatively. The lower level people cannot think creatively or innovatively as they can, right? So just because of that, what happens? The creativity is reduced. Fine. So somewhere the planning done by the top level managers is reducing the creativity of the middle level and supervisory level of managers, right? So this is what all about. If you want to understand it by example, I just give you an example. Say for example, there is a very big organization, and for their marketing executives, they have a traveling policy, okay, and they have particular contact with some airlines. Say for example, they have contact with the SpiceJet. Okay, means if their marketing executive or other employees need to travel inside India or outside India, they will travel only by SpiceJet. Okay, whatever fare the SpiceJet is going to charge, they'll have to pay that. Okay, company will reimburse the ticket amount to the employee only in the condition when he or she has gone by SpiceJet. Okay, now what happens? The employee needs to travel to a place, and when he sees the ticket fares, okay, if he goes by SpiceJet, it is costing him around, and if he goes by some other airline, say for example Indigo, then it is costing him 5,000, right? So there is a huge difference, right? The employee thinks that if I go by this, then I'll be saving the money of the company, right? But he cannot do that. Why? Because the company has the policy, and the policy has to be strictly followed. Okay, so this thinking of reducing the money is not going to work. Okay, that is, so as per the rules and regulation of the company, he has to travel by SpiceJet. Okay, and just because of that, this amount is not going in the interest of the company. That is going against the interest of the company, right? If he had gone by this, then definitely he would have saved 10,000 of the company. Okay, so this is what the situation happens. That is why we say that planning reduces creativity. Okay, now let's move on to another point. So the another point is planning involves huge cost, right? See, the formulation of plans includes collection of data, analysis of data, okay, as well as the evaluation of the data by professionals and other important people. Okay, so this process takes time, and lot of meetings, discussions need to be held regarding the same. Okay, because formulating plan is a very tough exercise. Okay, and this exercise cost a lot, right? So sometimes what happen, the cost is coming more than the benefit derived from that plans. So in such case, the planning becomes meaningless, because if you are spending more than the income, means if you have spent 10 lakh rupees on the plans and you have earned only 8 lakh rupees by that planning, so we need to decide that planning is meaningful or not. Not at all, right? planning is an important exercise that should be done, that is going to help you in getting success, but we have to take care of the cost as well, right? So if the planning process is costing much, so that kind of planning should be avoided. Okay, and it happens, if you talk about the big organizations, then they continuously keep on planning, right? And they spend a lot money on their planning. However, they derive a lot of benefits also out of that. Okay, if they are deriving more benefits, then there is no problem at all, carry on your planning. Okay, but if the benefit is not being justified with the amount of the planning, then planning should not be done. That planning should be avoided. Okay, so that is also the limitation, that planning involves huge cost, and that is what the reason the small organization do not do much planning. Okay, because they cannot afford the cost of that sophisticated planning, right? So that is what happened. That is one of the flaws of these small organizations. Okay, they do not spend much money, or we can say that they are not able to spend much money on the planning function, and that is why they usually miss the chances. Okay, so this is again the limitation of the planning. Planning involves huge cost. Now let's move on to another point of limitation. So the next point is planning is a time consuming process. Okay, like I have just explained you that the formulation of plan includes collection of data. Okay, so this collection of data is not a single day activity, right? It takes many months. Okay, and after collection, the data is supposed to be analyzed and evaluated, and that is also going to take time, and then it has to be studied from different aspects. The discussion has to be done, seeing the pros and cons of those, right? So it is also going to take time, right? So that is why planning is considered a time consuming process, because it takes a lot of time. Okay, if the organization has that amount of time, then there is no problem. But if the time is being spent more than the implementation part, then the organization is going to suffer. And sometimes it happens the organization is spending a lot of time to decide. Okay, if one plan has been decided by the middle level management for something, but they need the approval from the top level management, and the approval is delayed. Okay, so until unless the plan is finalized, only then it can be implemented. Okay, so say for example it was approved very late, and then there was very less time left for the implementation. Even then they implemented the plan, but the target could not be achieved, right? So if there is a situation that there is not much time left for the planning, then it should be avoided. Okay, because it is a time consuming process, right? If you have ample amount of time, only then you can do planning. Otherwise it is very much difficult to derive the same benefit. See, there are two kinds of investment. One, investment of the money, and another is the investment of the time. If the organization has put a lot of time in some exercise, that equal amount of return they expect, right? If equal amount of return is there, then there is no problem. Otherwise it is not suggested to have plan. Okay, and sometimes what happens in the organization, the sudden situation and the emergency kind of situations comes, okay, which require immediate decisions. So in that case, planning gets failed, because it is a time consuming process. You need to take a time, and the opportunity will be gone. Okay, so this is again the limitation of the planning. Planning is a time consuming process. Now let's move on to another point. So the another point is planning does not guarantee success, right? See, as we know that planning is done on the basis of the estimates and the analysis. It is just an anticipation, nothing more than that. Okay, sometimes or most of the time the anticipation can be correct, but all the time anticipation cannot guarantee you success. Means there are aspects we need to understand that. So first of all, we need to understand the plans are supposed to be drawn properly and implemented properly. Only then the success of the plan can be expected. One aspect. Another aspect is that sometimes what happened, the managers rely on the previous plans because the previous plan got them success in the previous period, right? But it is not necessary that every time the same plan is going to get you the same amount of success, because you are working in the dynamic environment, right? When the situations change, competitive environment changes, then what happens? Your planning is not going to get you the same amount of success that you got last time. Okay, so this is the another aspect which needs to be understood. One more aspect is that only by planning you are not going to achieve your target, right? You need to put the equal and required amount of efforts as well, right? Okay, for example, if you plan to score 95% in your examination, right? And you have made strategy for that, you have decided what steps you need to take, everything you have prepared, the whole syllabus you have divided into the months, days, as well as in the hours, everything you have planned, and after that you are sleeping. So this planning is going to get you success? Not at all. You need to put the required efforts as well, right? So planning demands the efforts. Okay, so there are three aspects of this point. One aspect, the plan should be drawn with carefulness, and implementation should also be done with the same amount of carefulness. Okay, another point, that the previous plans may not guarantee you success this time. Okay, and the last aspect is that only by planning you are not going to get success. You need to put the equal amount of efforts as well, right? Okay, so that is why we say that planning does not guarantee success. However, it helps you get success, right? It helps you, it moves you forward, but it will get you success all the time. That is not necessary, because already we have understood that planning gets failed sometimes. So when the planning gets failed, how it is going to get you success? But when you do planning, then there are more chances of success. Okay, if you do not do the planning, then there are the no chances or very less chances of success. So that is what the importance of planning. Planning should be done. We should not understand that when planning does not guarantee success, we should not be doing planning at all. See, it is not the 100% actual situation. Everything is there on the basis of estimation, and estimations are most of the time correct, but sometimes the estimations can be wrong as well. Okay, but what we'll have to do, we cannot ignore the importance of planning. We'll have to keep planning, keeping the present situation in the mind, so that we can be better prepared for the future. Okay, we can take the example of the present situation. Right now, if I talk about, then in India, most of the businesses are suffering the losses due to this COVID-19 pandemic, right? So earlier the plans which got them success, are these plans going to get them the same amount of success in present scenario? Not at all. All those plans have gone vain. Okay, so the situations keep on changing. Now they'll have to plan as per this situations. Okay, so that is why we say that planning does not guarantee success. So this was all about the limitations of planning. I hope you must have enjoyed this session. Very soon I am going to come with the steps of planning and types of plan. Okay, we will be finishing the entire chapter very soon. Till then, bye bye. Thank you.